Welcome into the Fantasy Degens. We're going over a 10-team SuperFlex half PPR. This isn't a mock draft. This is our actual real draft from our main league. So we're going to be going over our picks. We're going to be going over analysis on the players, picks we like, picks we don't like, kind of just like all different kinds of ideas around the player going to whatever given landing spot. Hopefully give you guys some ideas for your own leagues. Today, I'm Michael Murphy coming in at Sweaty Pepperoni. I'm pick 8, traded up to get that in a recent trade. I'm your previous champion, if I do want to toot my horn a little bit here. And then we got 3 other team captains here alongside myself. We got Joe, Ouija Boy, coming in at pick 101. If you want to introduce yourself real quick.
How's it going, guys? It's Ouija Boy. My name's Joey Hodson. I got the 101 in this draft. I have the 104. This is a SuperFlex mock draft, non-tight end premium. And so, yeah, I'm happy to be here with you guys and get this draft started.
Okay, now we got coming in at pick 106. We got another team captain here, Ethan. Also, Ethan G 912. If you want to introduce yourself, E.
What's up, everyone? I don't have a creative nickname like Mike and Joe, just my name and my birthday. I got pick 106 and 110 in this draft.
And then coming in for our 4th team captain here talking, we got Donald Jonai coming in at pick 109. Don, if you want to introduce yourself. Sounds good. So let's start it off. I'll let Joe kind of take things over here because he is pick 101. I know he wants to talk a little bit about T-Law here. So, Joe, if you want to break it in.
Sure thing. So this pick was probably the easiest pick in the entire draft for me. I know a lot of people can debate, maybe going with Trey Lance, the guy with probably the most upside in this entire draft, probably more than T-Law himself. Me personally, though, I'm a Justin Fields guy. I like what I see in him. I also think he's pro ready personally. But yeah, so 101, we got T-Law. He's the greatest prospect we've seen, as everyone says, from, Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning. He's got that type of, he's got that type of ability. I think my favorite thing about Trevor Lawrence is, or I guess what a lot of people kind of undervalue. A lot of people, they recognize his mobility, but, I think it's really, he's got a lot of mobility to his game. I mean, I forgot what podcast was saying it. I mean, I think it was Kyle Yates over on Fantasy Pros. He's like, I wouldn't be too shocked if Trevor Lawrence, had the most rushing touchdowns for a quarterback position. I mean, in 3 to 4 years, maybe not his rookie year, of course, but you never know. I mean, he's got a lot of mobility to his game, and yeah, that was the easiest pick for me in this draft. So
I do want to talk about Trevor Lawrence a little bit more. So I do think an underrated aspect that people are kind of forgetting when it comes to Trevor Lawrence is Urban Meyer has a ceiling of his own. He is kind of an unknown commodity right now, but he's someone that at Utah, when he had Alex Smith in there, turned him into a number 1 overall quarterback, and he ran like this spread offense, kind of changed the entire offense around Alex Smith when he was coming out. And then Tim Tebow turned him into a Heisman winner. And that offense that he ran comparative to Utah is completely different. So throughout his entire career, his entire coaching career, he's been someone that's kind of changed schemes based off the quarterback that he's getting in. So I'm really interested to see what he has in store for Trevor Lawrence. I know he said before he even signed with the Jaguars that he was like, Trevor Lawrence is this insane prospect that he's like, it's a clear-cut, easy 101 to him. So I'm really excited to see what he has in store. I know he's someone that he's been talking about even before he ended up signing with the Jaguars. So I'm really excited for Trevor Lawrence. I do want to take over the 102 a little bit, talk a little bit about Trey Lance, because that is my boy coming into San Francisco. I'm a 49ers fan, and I love him. I love the pick for Devin, especially because he already has Jimmy G. He's a little bit weaker in the quarterback position right now, so he ended up trading up to get this 102 to get Trey Lance. I think it's perfect because he's going to have a starting quarterback between one of those two guys. As soon as, obviously, Jimmy G moves on, then Trey Lance will be stepping right into his spot. And I heard something interesting on a podcast the other day that they were talking about how how at North Dakota State they were allowing him to like make audibles as a redshirt freshman. This is something that like Kyle Shanahan does a lot. He always has like 2 or 3 plays picked out. So and lets the QB kind of make decisions based off how the defensive reads are coming out. So I'm really excited. I think he's more pro ready than people give him credit for, and also obviously his upside in terms of rushing. And Kyle Shanahan's been someone that loves winning the run game and numbers, and you add 11-on-11 football to that, it becomes even more insane. So I'm really excited to see what he can do with Trey Lance. And obviously he's coming into IU, Debo, Travis, George Kittle, and a great offensive line too. So I'm really excited for Trey Lance. I think that was a great pick at 102. I know some people would debate Fields over him. I feel like it's depending on what your needs are, but I would pick Trey Lance at the 102. I'm kind of curious how you guys feel about that.
Yeah, I like Trey Lance a lot.
Yeah, I love Justin Fields, but him going to the Bears, I mean, there's just a lot of going to be
Don, you're kind of cutting
Trey
out.
Lance going with Kyle Shanahan into that Niners team with the town around him.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm still a believer in Matt Nagy. I mean, when he did open up the offense more, when Mitch Trubisky did have his best season, it looked like a different offense. I know he had to limit what he could really do with the quarterback play, and I think even if you can get above average quarterback play out of Justin Fields with that rushing upside, and it's not. I mean, it doesn't have the best receiving core by any means, but he still has Allen Robinson. He still has Darnell Mooney, who a lot of people are high on. I love the Daz Newsome pick. He's a great slot receiver. So I'm interested to see how that all pans out with Justin Fields. And kind of working into the 103, he did get picked here. So we kind of already covered him a lot. He was honestly, as a Niners fan, I was higher on Fields. I wanted them to take Fields over Lance. I mean, it's kind of a situation where I like Lance's landing spot better, and they were really close to me in terms of player projections or player profiles, in my opinion. So I would go Lance over Fields. I think we all kind of discussed similar light, but it's more of a landing spot, and obviously he did get the higher draft capital. But anyone else want to kind of discuss anything more on Justin Fields?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw that, but the aptitude test the rookies take.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Fields scored a 130 on it.
Yeah, I did see the stat.
Yeah, and just for context, Pat Mahomes scored a 110. So, I mean, that's kind of all arbitrary, but that just shows a little bit of the mental game of Justin Fields and how, he understands the game and how smart he is on the field.
Yeah, they were asking him to recall like an entire formation that they ran a couple of years ago, and he literally could tell you where every person was lining up offensively and defensively, what kind of coverage they were running. Like this dude, in terms of the mental game and the physicals, I mean, obviously 4.4 speed is nothing to shy away from. He has insane arm talent in terms of throwing power and accuracy. He's one of the best deep ball accuracy throwers in all of college football. And then you also add that mental aspect to him. I think he's going to be an absolute stud. Like I said, he was honestly my quarterback 2 prospect in terms of like the draft, in terms of where I think he should have been drafted. But all right, let's move on to the 104 here. We got Ouija Boy picking again, taking Kyle Pitts. Joe, I know you were a huge fan of him all the way back since like October. I know that you've been talking about how he was going to be the first positional player off the board. So I think you could probably go on like a 5-minute tangent about him, so I'll let you take it away.
I mean, yeah, we all know Kyle Pitts. I mean, he's a mismatch nightmare. That's what he's going by now. I mean, that's him. I mean, he's too fast for linebackers, too big for cornerbacks. I mean, he ran a 4.45, I believe 4.4, something like that. I think it was a 4.45. I mean, he straight up dominated in college. We know this. I was shocked to see him go at 4. I mean, the odds were in his favor, like right before the draft. So I really thought he was going to Miami at 6, maybe not before the draft, but that's kind of where I saw him going. But yeah, I love Pitts. I mean, he's a big ass dude. He's fast as hell. And I'd like, this isn't even a tight end premium, but I like having my positional locks. I mean, Kyle Pitts had like his absolute floor for for me is like, he's going to be the tight end 6 for years to come, at least. He's probably going to be top 3, not the rest of his career. A lot of his career. So, the dude's a beast. My philosophy in Dynasty is to really build like your receivers young. So, I could have taken Chase there too. Najee Harris was another option, but, this isn't even tight end premium, but I just value the position, just to get a lock and not have to worry about that position. To get Kyle Pitts here for me was, I love the pick. I'm excited to see him play. He was getting comps to like Megatron. I don't know if I want to go that far, but the dude, we all know he's a stud. So,
and another thing,
got the physicals for it.
Yeah, and another thing, there's been more and more talks that I've seen recently that Julio is more and more likely not going to be on the Falcons come the regular season. Now, I'm not necessarily a believer in that. I think they had the option at the 4th pick to kind of go into more of a rebuild. They had a lot of QB options there, and I think them taking Kyle Pitts, I think that's like kind of like, to me, solidifies the fact that they don't think that this team is like in a rebuild mode. So I don't know if they're necessarily going to move on from Julio. I'm interested to see that, but obviously that's another thing to look at is like if Julio does move on, maybe not year 1, but maybe year 2, Kyle Pitts could be putting up crazy numbers. I do want to ask, because like the best, I want to just like temper expectations a little bit year 1. The best like receiving numbers that are like a tight end's put up in the last like 30 years was Jeremy Shockey. And he put up like 74 catches and like 894 yards. And we've seen receivers crack 1,000 yards as rookies. So I do want to give a little bit of tempering expectations year 1, but I think this dude could be, 30, 31, still putting up insane numbers. You're looking at what Kelsey's doing right now. I'm not saying he's going to become Kelsey, but if he can even come 90 to 85% of Kelsey, you're getting an absolute steal at 104. So.
Yeah, I want to add on to the whole Julio Jones leaving thing. I completely agree with you. You and I talked a little bit about this a few days ago. At 104, they had the option to go Justin Fields. They took Kyle Pitts. That's a great pick, but that just goes to show me, as well as you, that we still think they're going to go for it all here. If for those who say tight ends year 1, year 2 take a while to develop into the league. I completely agree with that, but this is Kyle Pitts, so I wouldn't say you're looking at it wrong, but he's a different breed really. So I expect, great. I don't expect like insane numbers. I don't expect 1,000 receiving yards by any means, but we could easily see 750 receiving yards, 6 touchdowns minimum. That's already tight end 6, we're looking at. So
yeah, I also like the moving on. If they do move on from Julio, I could see him going. I don't think he'll really be utilized as an inline tight end, but you could see if Julio moves on, him going outside for snaps, him going into the slot for snaps, him moving all around the field. So that's another aspect of it. He's an offensive weapon coming in. Like that's what people would call him, was an offensive weapon, not a tight end. And, he could move all over the field and be an absolute beast in terms of like going outside and being utilized in a bunch of different roles. So he's a tight end. He's a tight end and he has wide receiver physicals. Like that's how much of a freak he is. And yeah, you can't say enough about Kyle Pitts really. That's why I do love the pick at 104. And I think there's something that we've also talked about in past drafts when it comes to startups or redrafts or anything is like scarcity at a position. You can really look at like 3, 4 maybe tight ends that are like, you can trust every week to put in, and then the rest of them are just kind of like you plug them in plus matchups, or you're just hoping that they just don't give you like 3 or 4 points. So he could really fit into that category of 3 or 4 that you can start them every week, and they're putting up numbers that can compare to wide receivers, which is like a huge scarcity at the position.
And just for context, last year I picked up on the waiver wire Robert Tonyan, and he ended up being the tight end 5. With off the waiver wire, and you have this guy drafted high, and I think like top 3 is a possibility for him rookie year. If Julio leaves, I think he could break 1,000 yards, break 10 touchdowns. I think kind of the sky's the limit for him.
And just talking him and Jamar Chase in particular, I think that those are the two top dogs in this conversation. I would much rather have Pitts myself just because of the positional value that he provides. I mean, receiver is 30, 40 players deep of guys that you actually would want to start. Meanwhile, tight end, after you get past the 5, 6, 7 guys at the top there, you don't want to start any of those guys. I mean, locking in a tight end at 21 years old with how good Pitts is and how long tight ends last, I think it was a no-brainer. I mean, I think he's just an absolute beast, and he's an anchor for your dynasty team for a long time to come.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. All right, moving on to Jamar at 5. He's picked by John. He traded, I don't remember the exact trade, but he moved from 2 to 5, got a bunch of future picks and stuff like that.
He got the second this year, and he got 2022 second.
And
so he had the 102. He traded for the 105, the 205, and next year second.
Yeah, so a little context. John is like, I'd say he's in the middle of a rebuild right now. He has Kyler and Pat Mahomes already at QB, so it wasn't a positional need for him at all. He was already like looking at one of these Kyle Pitts, Jamar Chase, Najee type guys at 2, but then he also felt like, there's a lot more value that he could get him at 5. So he ended up trading down in order to get that value. And that's something that if I was in a rebuild, that would be my strategy. I'd be trading down all the time. Like, I think trading down, like, you can't really be overconfident in your draft analysis. You can't be overconfident in those kinds of things. Like, you look at like Corey Davis. Corey Davis, his rookie year, in startups. And I'm not saying that like Jamar Chase is going to be Corey Davis. I think Jamar Chase is a better prospect than Corey Davis was. I think Jamar Chase is an absolute beast. But in startups, I just saw a stat that his ADP in startup leagues, his rookie year, was wide receiver 14. Like wide receiver 14. So you can't be
with these guys.
You never know with these guys. I mean, like, I remember Corey Davis, people were ridiculously high on. He had a lot of potential coming into the league. So, I mean, not saying that that's how Jamar Chase is going to be, but you being able to acquire more draft capital, getting more dart throws, especially in a rebuild, like, is always a great strategy for me in my eyes, because you want more chances of one of these guys being able to hit. And if you're in a rebuild, you're most likely going to need more positional depth. You're going to most likely need more of these players to end up working out. So I really liked his option. I really liked his idea of trading out, still getting Jamar Chase here at 5 by doing so. And I know we're going to talk about on another podcast in the future about like dynasty theory, like how we think we should rebuild teams, how we think you should do it if you're in a win now state. But I love the pick of Jamar Chase at wide receiver. Now, if I was like blindly going off value, I might take Najee over Jamar, but you got to look at the longevity of wide receivers. He's in the middle of a rebuild, so he's going to be able to have potentially a top tier wide receiver for the next 8 years, which I don't know if you can necessarily say the same thing about Najee, that he's going to be a top tier running back for 8 years. So I love the pick at 105. I'd love to turn it over to you guys, see what you guys think.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was the right pick there. If I was John, I've not Najee with the state of his team. I mean, locking down Jamar for the long term was definitely the right move, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And I think he has the best landing spot out of like any of these receivers in my eyes. I mean,
easily.
He's reuniting with Joe Burrow, his college quarterback, who he put ridiculous numbers up, won the Bletnikoff with. And, I think honestly, like, I know that, I'm a huge Devontae Smith believer. I know we'll get to him in the second round, but I think people, he opted out for a year. I think people are kind of forgetting how dominant Jamar was, while also having Terrace Marshall, who's a second round receiver, and Justin Jefferson, which we all know about him. So he put these ridiculous numbers in a crowded wide receiving core. Same thing that he's going to be in with kind of with Cincinnati with Boyd and Higgins. So I think it's like a perfect landing spot for him. You have AJ Green, who literally had 104 targets last year. And like he moved on to Arizona, so tons of vacated targets available for Jamar. And that's just year 1, let alone we'll see what he ends up doing in the future. And that's also with, I don't think it's unrealistic that Burrow could put up insane numbers this year and, put close to over 4,500 yards and in the 30 touchdown range, so I don't think any of those numbers are unrealistic for him this year. So I really like the Jamar pick here.
Now, Mike, you and I talked about this a little bit. Who do we think gets impacted more here in a negative way? Tyler Boyd or T. Higgins? I'm the believer that it's T. Higgins, but Tyler Boyd's going to maintain his role in the slot is how I see it. I think if anything, it just eats away targets from T. Higgins. But I just kind of want to hear what Don and E have to say about this.
So I gotta say, in my opinion, I think that all three of these guys can all coexist.
For sure.
The Bengals are one of the most pass happy teams in the league, and they don't pass to their tight ends whatsoever. I mean, their tight end is Drew Sample, so they're not going to pass to him.
They signed Thaddeus Moss too.
You're right. I
like
forgot about
Randy
Moss.
Moss's son.
Hey, deep sleeper Thaddeus Moss.
Well,
Thaddeus Moss.
He's got chemistry with Joe Burrow. I mean, it's not a terrible pickup in deeper leagues. And tight end premiums, I think he should be on a 12-man roster.
No,
he's just a low upside guy. I mean, he's not too athletic. He's just a guy at the end of the day.
He's not
much upside with him.
I would not roster Thaddeus Moss at any point.
In a tight end premium.
What about on the taxi squad?
What's that?
Keep the taxi squad?
No.
In a tight end premium, I would roster him. There's no reason why he shouldn't be rostered.
I mean, what?
If Drew Sample is rostered, then Thaddeus Moss needs to be rostered.
I mean, wasn't he undrafted? Thaddeus Moss?
No. Actually, he was, and then he went to the Redskins or the Washington football team, and he had this lingering foot injury for a while. And, he was productive with Joe Burrow. I mean, among all these guys, Terrace Marshall, Jamar Chase, freaking Justin Jefferson, I mean, Thaddeus Moss put up, some numbers. He had some clutch catches in the championship game. I mean, he had some sideline toe-touching catches. I mean, he's got the ability. He's got good hands. I mean, he's kind of like he's kind of slow. He's not. I don't know how athletic he is. Probably not that athletic, but I mean, he's got some receiving ability. I don't think he's a terrible add in tight end premiums in like a 12-man league.
Yeah, in a tight end premium, I'll agree with that a little bit more.
Sure. In our league,
I would not pick him up in our league. In our league, I would not pick him up. I just don't. I don't. I think they spent a second round pick on Drew Sample. Now, I don't think Drew Sample is great by any means, but you're talking about like an undrafted player. I mean, that they literally got.
But he also has chemistry with Joe Burrow.
Like they just picked him up. He does have chemistry with Joe Burrow, but they just literally picked him up and used an undrafted player. They spent the second round pick on Sample was last year. So
there's no need to argue over Thaddeus Moss.
Sure, I just first off, I'm just shocked that Drew Sample was a damn second round pick.
I was.
I didn't know that either.
Like, what?
Yeah. So, okay. Going back to your talking point, though, I did want to say that I think Tyler Boyd gets hurt more. I think both of them get hurt because if you had T. Higgins, you see what he did his rookie year, and you're kind of like, all right, if you don't want him to be stagnant to what he did his rookie year, you wanted to see improvement. You wanted to see him be able to take those targets to another level. And now I don't think he really is going to have that opportunity to do so. But I still think T. Higgins is more of a big play receiver, more of someone that's going to have more yards per catch than a Tyler Boyd who's in the slot, more of a high volume guy. So my fear with him is like in the future, at least, that you're taking away a lot of targets now dictated to T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Like, I just don't see where the volume really falls for him anymore. Now, I do think, like Donald said, I do think Burrow can support all three of these guys. You've seen it in previous offenses that three receivers can be supported. You look at the Rams a couple of years ago. You look at the Packers with Aaron Rodgers like 5 or 6 years ago, whatever it was. So it's definitely doable. It definitely has potential, but I definitely think the volume eat that's going to happen with Jamar coming in year 2, year 3 is really going to hurt Boyd, in my opinion, more than it will hurt Higgins. I don't think Higgins needs the volume nearly as much as Boyd does to be successful, but
sure,
certainly not. I mean, even a more recent example is the Steelers last year. I could definitely see it shaking out like as a similar situation as that.
That's what I was thinking as well.
Yeah, and like that's the thing about like you look at all those offenses. You look at the Packers. I mean, not necessarily the Rams as much, but and the Steelers last year. There are teams that are throwing the ball plus 550 times, and I don't think that's unrealistic at all for the Bengals. Zach Taylor's always been someone that has given a high volume passing to their quarterback, and I think you get these wide receiver weapons. It more solidifies the fact that they want to throw the football behind Burrow. So I could definitely see him going over 550 attempts, and I could see all three of them having volume. So, yeah, I agree. All right, E, do you want to take over pick 6? You got Zach Wilson here.
I would love to. Oh, well, Zach Wilson is, I think, far and away the QB4. I think it is a giant tier break from the first 3 guys we talked about today. And when he was drafted, going into the draft, I was not that high on Zach Wilson. There are a lot of things that I don't love about him, and especially versus good competition. That was really the nail in the coffin for me. I forget the exact stats, but it was like 1 touchdown, 7 interceptions versus top 25 schools or something like that.
It was against 10-plus win teams, and he was 0-5, 1 touchdown, 7 interceptions. So, yeah, you're right.
There we go. But, yeah, and that translating to NFL. The NFL are obviously better than all those teams anyways. But I needed a quarterback. With my team, I got a couple old guys chilling, so need some young guns. And I do. And looking into it, I like what Saleh is doing. I love him. I love when he was on the 49ers. I think he deserved the Jets job. I really like what they're doing with the entire offense, the weapons they're bringing in. Michael Carter, we'll probably talk about him later. Really like him. I like Elijah Moore, who I actually drafted in the 2nd round. We'll get to him as well. Another offensive lineman that I really like. Solid, great coach. And, it's going to be that Adam Gase effects. Once he's gone, the offense gets better. Team gets better. And for fantasy, they still have a bad defense. Defense not good. They're going to be throwing the ball all the time. So the volume is going to be there. The weapons are going to get there. They signed Corey Davis as well. Still have Jamison Crowder. Still have Denzel Mims. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for him. I don't think that his ceiling is as high as any of the first 3 guys, but I think he will be a solid starter with some decent upside to be a QB1 in the upcoming years.
Yeah, I just want to say.
I think they definitely.
Go ahead, Don.
Go ahead, Joe.
I just want to say, I mean, like, to get the 2nd quarterback drafted in the NFL at a picks number 6 in a SuperFlex league, I mean, it's just crazy value to me. I mean, this is a crazy year, you know what I mean? I mean, regardless of how we feel about Zach Wilson, I mean, he was pick number 2 in the NFL draft, Yeah.
And I really feel the Jets set the guy up for success well. They really went offensive heavy in this draft. They didn't really even focus on one of the league worst defenses. They really just wanted to help Zach Wilson out, which I believe is the right call. I mean, you can focus on your defense when you're ready to be a winning team. At this moment, you really just need to focus on your franchise guy, and that's Zach Wilson.
Yeah, best thing you can do for rookie quarterback is give him weapons.
Yeah, I mean, look at what they didn't do with Sam Darnold. I mean, that guy's career was just in shambles from the moment it started. And not the least of it was due to Adam Gase. I mean, he just had a bad support system all around. So I feel that they are turning the page, going to Zach Wilson. And you were saying earlier that he has a low upside. I'm actually of the opinion that he has one of the highest upsides in this class. I mean, he doesn't provide the rushing floor that guys like Trey Lance and Justin Fields do, but he's probably got the best arm talent in this draft. I mean, if you're going to say anybody from this draft is going to turn into Pat Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers, that type of guy, it's probably him. I mean, he's probably got the highest upside throwing wise. You can see this guy throwing for 40 touchdowns and 4,500 yards. I don't know. I could see it. I could see it in green and white.
I was about to say almost the exact same point. If there's anybody that I could see throwing 40 touchdowns in this class, I think it's Zach Wilson. I do also want to bring up a couple more points. So Robert Saleh, he also brought over Mike LaFleur from the 49ers, who I'm a huge fan of. So Kyle Shanahan, first couple of years coming in, called his own plays. He ended up letting Mike LaFleur take over for the play calling over there in San Francisco. He's a dude that is from that, Sean McVay, Mike Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan coaching tree. Same thing with Matt Flores, his brother in Green Bay. So I think he's also a great offensive coordinator that's coming in, that I think he's going to run like a really dynamic offense. You've seen like you're talking about some of the most QB friendly systems in all football. You're talking about someone that turned Jared Goff into like that Rams offense when they went to the Super Bowl. They looked dynamic. He looked insane. Like Jared Goff actually looked good. And like now he's like a bridge quarterback for the Lions. And like you're talking about like all these quarterbacks that he made, like Kyle Shanahan made Matt Schaub look good. You know what I'm saying? Like these are quarterbacks that aren't the highest profile QBs. Now you're getting someone at the second overall pick that is going into that kind of system. I mean, I think also I'm in the belief that the Jets is one of the most underrated wide receiving cores. I know if you listen to a lot of other analysts, they'll tell you how much they like the Jets weapons that are here, and they spent a first round pick. I know we'll talk about this on a later podcast about that Elijah Vera Tucker trade, but they got Malik Becton from last year's first round pick. They got Elijah Vera Tucker. They're building that offensive line around him. So I mean,
and I love both those guys too.
Yeah,
I Beckham loved them last year. Barrett loved them this year. Love that trade for them. And I didn't know I was going to get Zach Wilson, but after Zach Wilson was drafted, once I got that lineman, I was really looking forward to see the Jets play, especially with Saleh as well.
And
He's going to be
and Mike LaFleur.
Elijah Vera Tucker was the number one rated guard in terms of pass protection. So it's not like he's coming in, he's just going to be this run mauling guard either. Like the dude can block, like he's an absolute animal in terms of pass protection. And, you looked at like what they did with like Lakeland Tomlinson, who was supposed to be this like mauling guard, like 320 pounds from the Lions. And they turned him into a really good pass blocker. Now you have someone that's an actual good pass blocker. He also played tackle in college, so he has versatility to his game. And you bring him in an offense that also has been really friendly to offensive linemen. Like I think he could become one of the best pass blocking guards in all of football. So I think that's another thing to look at is like, like these young quarterbacks, like they need good protection, So I'm a big Zach Wilson fan. I wasn't as huge on him as a player prospect. I still liked Fields better than him coming in, but I mean, I think he has the potential to throw for 40 touchdowns at some point in his career. I also think he has like what they're building around him. I honestly, like if you look at a lot of number 2 overall picks, I think they could land in a lot worse situations, and they have landed in a lot worse situations than Zach Wilson's going into. So I actually kind of like the landing spot, even though I know some may view it as not as good. Like I think we've kind of talked about a lot of the things that we like about it. So is there any other points you guys want to make on?
He's my second favorite landing spot behind Trey Lance. I think Zach Wilson has the second best landing spot out of all these quarterbacks, or the top 5 at least.
That's interesting. I want to hear you guys' other opinions on that. Donald, you agree with that?
Second is it's perfect. I mean, it's hand in glove. I think that his intelligence, acumen, his anticipation, his pre-snap reads fit perfectly with what they want to do on offense. They
Don, you're cutting out pretty bad.
And get to the smartest.
Don, I am dying to know who you're talking about.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I feel like you were talking about Mac Jones there for a second, but I don't know.
Oh, I am talking about Mac Jones.
Okay, I thought so. Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think Mac Jones is probably my second favorite landing spot.
Really? You guys like Mac Jones?
For sure.
I mean,
really?
Hello?
It's more, I think when we're talking about landing spots, like he has literally a top 5 offensive line, in my opinion. Like if you look at that, what's on that O-line, they were already great last year, and then they had Trent Brown. Like they are an insane offensive line. I know, like I'm not the biggest Kendrick Bourne or Nelson Aguilar fan, but I do like the tight ends they added. And I think it's a perfect scheme for Mac Jones. Now, I don't necessarily – I think it's more of a stylistic level of play when they make comparisons to Brady. I mean, like what he did in Alabama, I mean, it is quick decisions. It is like smart decision making. It is like making the right read. So that kind of fits in line with that. But like the Alabama system is definitely different than what they ran in New England. But I could see a lot of parallels kind of working well into Mac Jones' favor in terms of what
Hey,
they
I mean,
we'll talk about
in the
Mac
last
Jones
20
later.
years. Yeah, we'll talk
Don't
about Mac
worry.
Jones. All
I
right,
picked
sorry.
him 110. Don't worry.
I'm sorry. I'm just a little, we're talking about landing spots, so we'll go through it. I mean,
yeah. Hey, we should probably move on to
yeah, let's go to Najee. Yeah,
this trio of running backs here.
yeah. Anyone want to take over for Najee? Anyone
Yeah, I
wanna-
mean, Najee, I think is clear in what he provides. I mean, he was in the situation.
You're cutting out again, Don.
All right,
with the
maybe we shouldn't have let Donald take over this conversation.
Maybe not me, yeah.
Maybe he should introduce the idea. Joe, you want to talk about Najee?
Yeah, I mean, Najee in my eyes is the clear-cut running back one in this class. I mean, I've heard a lot of people go out on a limb and say Javonte Williams is their guy. I mean, to me, it's easily Najee Harris. I mean, coming into the draft alone, I mean, then he goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers, probably, I guess, them, the Bills, maybe the Falcons at this point being, maybe not the Falcons, maybe the Falcons being like the best landing spots for running back. I mean, that's like a honeypot for him. I mean, like, he's going to be receiving, I don't know, 250 plus touches at least his first year. I mean, his first year in the NFL could be his best year in the NFL. I mean, Najee Harris, I mean, he doesn't have the best O-line in the league by any means. I mean, James Conner, say what you will, but I mean, he was a solid back for a while. I mean, that O-line, I mean, didn't do him any favors, but, in this draft, they also went out in the 3rd and 4th round and grabbed a couple of linemen.
And James Conner did no favors to that offensive line, though.
Okay, he didn't, and that's why the run game was atrocious. But, he's
It was a
really
combination of both.
Can Mike tell you a quick stat about James Conner?
Quick
Sure.
stat about.
I don't hate James Conner. That's kind of my point.
I do.
James Conner ran for 3 yards after contact last year. 3 yards.
Pittsburgh Steelers, as a team, averaged 3.7 yards a carry. James Conner.
All right.
Yeah, well, James Conner had 3 yards after contact. I mean, like that just shows how bad it was before contact, how no lanes were really created for him. I mean, here's the thing: is we can go on a whole other tangent on another podcast about why we don't like the Najee selection in the first round, why I don't like running back selections in the first round. But you pull up first round running backs. I mean, 88% of the time they're guaranteed to put up 88% of the time they put up a running back 24 or better year at some point in their career. And I really just don't see any chance of Najee falling outside of the top 15 this year. Like, I mean, let's say his efficiency's bad. Let's say he doesn't, let's say he's not running for 4.5 yards per carry. If you have, I mean, the biggest thing you ever ask anybody when it comes to running backs, when it comes to why running backs get draft capital in terms of redraft or startup leagues or anything for that matter, is volume. Volume is the biggest things for running backs. You don't want, like, there's few running backs you can look at in the NFL today. I mean, you can look at Alvin Kamara, sure, but like there's few running backs that get like under 225 carries and put up top 10 years. It's unlikely. And this dude could come in year one. You look at Mike Tomlin, his career and how he's looked at running backs. He's always been someone. I think Najee Harris is literally the perfect running back for Mike Tomlin. Like, he's someone that can be on the field all 3 downs. He's someone that's a bell cow workhorse back, and he's going to come in year one and like I would not be surprised at all if he has 50 catches and like over 250 carries. I would not be surprised at all.
Yep.
That's just how they've utilized him. And Big Ben has always been someone that's utilized the running back in terms of dump off game. I mean, I'm not really. If I was in a single QB and if I was in a single QB, no player or no like team needs at all, Najee would be my 101. And
100%.
That's why, I mean, I went away. I was really disappointed not to get him. That's kind of why I traded up to that spot, is because I thought, the person ahead of me, Strong Meat, was going to be kind of interested.
Shout out Strong Meat, bro.
Shout out Strong Meat. I thought he'd be interested in taking Mac Jones there potentially because of the quarterback needs. But I also, I had to go back once I made the trade. And once I was considering the trade in general, I also had to kind of go back and dig through who I like best next, because I knew that if Najee was on the board and it was between Najee and Mac Jones for him, I feel like it would be hard for him not to select him. I mean, like I said, he'd be my 101 he'd be my 101 in a one QB league. Is there anything else you guys want to say about Najee? I mean,
He's a beast.
he's a beast.
Yeah, don't be scared to draft him.
Yeah.
Like, don't. I know the O-line's a big thing. Just do it.
Like
Nope.
I can understand the love for ETN. I can understand the love for Devontae. I'm going to go into a whole tangent about ETN next, but I just don't see a world where you could ever pick either of those running backs over Najee. I just don't see a world of it. Like I think it's like I don't care about 31st offensive line. I don't care. Like I think the dude is going to get the volume to where even if he can run somewhat efficiently, he's going to put up crazy numbers his rookie year.
Would you be more excited if ETN went to the Steelers?
I would. Like
I know you did a lot of
I don't think
research
I
on
would.
ETN. I know you did a ton of research on ETN prior to this, so I want to hear your tangent on ETN.
So kind of moving into the 108 after Najee, I did want Najee. He was my running back one, and I know there are some Javonte Williams believers. I like Javonte a lot. I can see him being a 3-down guy. I like him, but we'll go into him next pick. I'm a big fan of Javonte as well. Not trying to diss the guy at all, but ETN to me is the clear-cut second running back, and I'll kind of get into the whole tangent. So first off, I think a lot of people are like slightly nervous about the whole fact of James Robinson was a beast last year. He was a beast. But in terms of PFF grade, James Robinson was 23 among running backs. 23. So that's around Ronald Jones, Jamal Williams. Like that's where he's around. So you take
Superstar Ronald Jones.
Superstar Ronald Jones, Hall of Fame Ronald Jones.
Come on.
Just for
Best pass
context,
catcher in the league.
Mike's a big Ronald Jones fan. I think Ronald Jones is a bomb.
Okay, that's fine. We'll get into Ronald Jones on another pod. But I might
Ronald
have to,
Jones dedicated pod.
I might have to make a solo pod and do a 15-minute tangent about how great Ronald Jones is. But
Don't watch that video, guys.
Yeah. don't expect any great pass catching in that video, but he's a beast. But anyways, going into ETN. So those are the people around him. I think the reason why he looked so great last year. Now I like for an undrafted player, James Robinson is a beast. He is. He came in on a horrible team and produced, and I can't knock him for that. But I already pulled up the stat about first round running backs. I already pulled up how you look at how first round running backs have fared over the years, and how they've done. It's a huge difference compared to the second round running backs and third down running backs. It is I know it sounds pretty obvious, but there's a major tier drop off between those things. So he got the first round draft capital. I know that was the thing that a lot of people were worried about. This is somebody that, I think if you took Ronald Jones or Jamal Williams and put them into that kind of volume in Jacksonville, I had to pull up James Robinson's exact numbers.
He had 1,000. He was close to 1,000 rushing yards, 7 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, I'm talking about it more from a volume perspective. I mean, I
don't know about touches, but
he had 240 touches, but then he also had 60 targets. He had 300 touches in that offense. Now ETN, he's 215 pounds. He's literally your size of a workhorse back. Not necessarily. He can be a workhorse back. He's 250 pounds. He's not a small guy. If you watch any of his tape, he runs through tackles. He's insane at breaking tackles. He's insane at shedding blockers. Dude put up 1,600 yards in a year. According to PFF, he was the number 1 rated pass catcher in the last 2 years among college football players. It's not I don't necessarily shake off the comps to Alvin Kamara because I don't think he could ever, I don't know if he's going to ever be that kind of receiving type of player, but he's someone that continued to improve as his college seasons moved on in the receiving game. I'm huge on ETN. I think he could be a 240, 230 carry guy. And I think, you have Trevor Lawrence. Obviously, that's something to look forward to. That's something that's going to be good for the next 8 to 10 years, in my opinion. He's moving right into that offense. So pretty much for the longevity of his rookie contract, he's going to be with someone that's a good offense. They're a terrible defense, so he's going to be able to get a lot of passing volume in my mind. And also he's with a quarterback who's been willing to give him a lot of passing volume. So I'm big on ETN. I think he's my clear-cut running back too. I would say I would not shy away from the James Robinson things. You don't spend a first-round talent to get a third down back. And he's not. I don't think he really like. He doesn't have the build of a third down back. He has a build of a 3-down back. So,
and he provides something the other two running backs don't, and that's just pure speed. Pure speed, acceleration mixed into a workhorse's body with the pass catching upside.
Yeah,
Sign
it's
me up.
16 touchdowns. There were over 44 yards in college. Like he has that big play potential that no other running back in this class has really. So I'm a huge fan. I think I would not. I think people are kind of letting him drop for the fact that they are slightly nervous about the whole James Robinson situation. I wouldn't be. I would. You don't spend first round draft capital. And also that's an undrafted player that was on the old regime. You know, it's not.
Yeah, it's a whole new regime.
You got new coaches coming in. You got a new front office coming in. So I would not be scared at all. I think they're gonna. And also another thing, talking about Urban Meyer earlier. Urban Meyer's been in his entire college coaching career. He's been someone that loves these like insane playmakers. These dudes that can make those 40, 50-yard type plays and just getting them into space and utilizing him to the best of his ability. I think Urban Meyer is a very good coach in order to get the potential out of ETN too as well. I think he's going to try to use him in space. I think they're going to utilize him in a bunch of different ways. Now, will I ever think he's going to become someone that's going to be working in the slot like Alvin Kamara does? Like, I don't know about that. Do I think he's going to be like a 70% route participation like Alvin Kamara was last year? I don't know about that, but I definitely think he has a lot of receiving upside. And I think he's more clear cut for a 1 and 2 down role than even Kamara is, you know? So that's kind of my outlook on him. I'm a big fan of him. So
I just want to add, I think people underrate, the fact that a quarterback can also have chemistry with his running back. And, usually when you think of that, you're like, oh, quarterbacks have chemistries with their receivers, but running backs, it's not as important. But, they still have to be on the same page. And I mean, he's played with Lawrence for 4 years now at Clemson. So I think that's just one more thing to add on to buying into someone like Travis Etienne.
I think the main knocking point, I think a lot, if you ask a lot of people pre-draft, I think people don't like the landing spot. I think that's why people have been dropping him. I know there are people, not saying that's everybody. I know there are people that had Javonte over him pre-draft. But I think people are actually concerned about the whole situation that he's going into. And I don't think I could paint it any clearer that it's not a bad situation by any means.
Mm-hmm.
And I think his volume will be there. So anyways,
yeah,
I think that's all I can say about the guy. I mean, you'll see him. You could pass on him and then you can regret it in future drafts, or down the line. But I'll let Don kind of go into Javonte a little bit more.
Yeah. I mean, Javonte's been the guy that the process. I'm cutting out.
I'm dying to hear about Javonte Williams.
Yeah.
Donald, real quick, sorry to interrupt, but do you have Javonte over Travis Etienne?
I don't. I wanted ETN.
Okay.
So I can't go out here and bring an argument about that.
Sure.
But I isn't here.
Take us away.
We're gonna have to make him go to Starbucks or something.
Yeah, I'm all right, I'll be back, guys. Let me just go to the local Walmart.
Hey,
if you want,
McDonald's got free Wi-Fi. If you want to go,
I was about to say,
them. Yeah.
If you guys want, you can go ahead and take the.
I'm sorry.
All right. Well, when Donald's dealing with that, I'll take Javonte because I actually wanted Javonte 110, and me and Donald were talking a little bit before the draft, and he said he was interested in Mac Jones at 1.9 if Strong Meat didn't take him at 7, and I was kind of hoping for Javonte at 10. I think he is an electric player, just so fun to watch. It's super good, and Denver is not when I first saw him get drafted to Denver, it was not my ideal landing spot. I really wanted to see him on the Falcons just for that instant. You know,
Or the
kind of,
Dolphins.
or the Dolphins. Yeah, there was a lot of teams I had in mind for him. But looking at Denver, Melvin Gordon's still there, yes, but his contract is up next year. And I mean, Javonte is going to be the guy. He's going to be the guy once. They're not going to re-sign Melvin. There's no need for it. And then he's going to be the workhorse. And if they get a quarterback in there, I think the Broncos have one of the best offenses in the league with all their weapons they have.
Yeah,
Especially with Drew Lock.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Javonte. I actually don't dislike the landing spot. I mean, he was someone that they traded up to get in the second round. They have a ridiculously good offensive line. Like, their offensive line is really good. I think their defense is going to kind of keep them in games. I mean, we'll do another pod about how much I love the Broncos defense, because I think even though I would have still went Justin Fields at 109, like, they are building a lot of pieces in that secondary. They still have an elite pass rush. So I'm a huge fan of their defense. I could see them bringing if they bring Teddy Bridgewater in, let's say Drew Lock doesn't ever reach his potential. I mean, I think their concept for the game is going to be, hey, we're going to win with our defense and we're going to run the football. I think that's how they're going to try to win games this year if Teddy Bridgewater ends up being the starter. So I think that he will get the usage even year one. And then obviously, Melvin Gordon's on the last year of his contract. I know that, like, he has a lot of, like, cap hit if they end up cutting him. So I know that they're not trying to necessarily just cut him. I know they're probably trying to look for, like, a trade candidate. I think there's, like, no likelihood that they end up cutting him this year. But I think for the future, once he does move on, like, he's going to be the clear-cut guy. And I think another knock on him was that he did share the backfield with Michael Carter. I mean, I know Joe is always a proponent of, like, I don't want these running backs to have, tons of tread on their tires coming in. And that's not Javonte Williams. I mean, that's someone that shared a backfield, had a split. So I think he's coming in to where he's going to get the clear-cut role, but he also doesn't have a ton of tread on his tires. He can last longer than, like, a Najee Harris, who did have a ton of tread on his tires coming in. So I like the landing spot. I think the offensive line is really good. I think even if Drew Lock can get a little bit better than he has in years past, I mean, he's getting weapons back. He's getting Sutton back. Noah Fant had injury problems last year. Hopefully he can stay healthy, like, you're going to have, and then also you're having Jerry Jeudy, who is a rookie last year, potentially taking a step up. So I think their weapons on that are insane. I don't think they can load boxes really against that team. So I'm a huge fan of Javonte. I like him a lot at the 1.9. And it's back to the kind of the thing that we were talking about with scarcity, that, after these three running backs, it does become kind of a shit shoot after that. And we could go, once we get into, like, the later rounds, we'll talk about a lot of the receivers that we still love deeper in the draft. I mean, if you're looking at the board, Joe got Dwayne Eskridge at 3.5. That's a steal, comparative to, like, you're looking at Ramondre Stevenson. No offense, but I know he was just kind of a flyer, but that's a huge drop off comparative to these top three running backs. So that's another thing to look at, is, like, you want to look at that scarcity at the position. You want to look that there are only three guys in this class that I'm really confident in, and there's a lot more receivers that I am more confident in coming to the second round. So I love that pick at 1.9. I don't know if you have any more things to say about it.
No, I think
great pick.
we covered it well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Kind of moving on to Mac Jones. Take her over.
Mac Jones, going into this draft, I didn't think I was going to end up with Mac Jones on my team. Just talking with the league mates, with the vibe, I thought he was going to go 7, 8, or 9, somewhere in there. But when he rolled around at 110, still on the board, I had to take him. And I know he's not the sexiest pick in the draft, especially with the other quarterbacks, with their mobility and all that. But, the Patriots are a good landing spot. Like Mike was saying earlier, I mean, that is a good landing spot. I do like Alexa Wilson a little more, but still a great landing spot for him. Offensive line is great. The weapons could be better, but not as bad as they could be. I think he'll get starts this season, and I think that's who they want to be the future with him. And in the 2 quarterback league, I cannot pass him up at 110.
Great value.
Great value. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Great value brand.
you're potentially getting the long-term starter in Bill Belichick's scheme. That's been, you looked at how that's worked with Brady. I mean, I'm not saying I'm knocking the Brady versus Mac Jones comps because, to compare the 15th overall pick, the fifth pick, and the fifth quarterback off the board in the draft to the greatest quarterback of all time is a little bit getting ahead of yourself. But I mean, I understand the comps that are made. I understand the stylistic play that are similar. I understand the quick decision making and the smart decision making that he makes consistently. The short field throws that he does extremely well in Alabama. I could see it really, obviously going straight into that Patriot scheme could be perfect. And I know Joe is a huge fan of Jonnu Smith. I'm a huge fan of Jonnu Smith, and I like Hunter Henry a lot as well. And I mean, Aguilar looked better than in Vegas than he did ever with the Eagles. And
amen to that.
Yeah, I think a lot of Eagles fans out there can agree with that.
Yeah.
And I'm not, Kendrick Bourne isn't a stud by any means, but he's not a bad receiver.
I've always liked him.
I offered him to you, man. Why didn't you take him?
And then I could probably argue with Donald for 30 minutes about N'Keal Harry. I'm not a huge fan of him at all. I never have liked N'Keal Harry. But I know he still
hey,
has,
now that I have Mac Jones, I hope N'Keal Harry gets a third-year breakout.
I mean, he still does have he still does have potential. Not saying that it's just done, but he still does have potential. But I've just never been a huge fan. But
Don, you want to break out on this offense? It's going to be
Mac Jones is going to help N'Keal Harry break out. Mark it on the calendars.
I could see it.
Joe, you got anything you want to add to Mac Jones?
I do. Every time somebody like almost compares him to Tom Brady, they back off. I mean, of course they have to, but Tom Brady's the best quarterback of all time, in my opinion. But even if he's half as good as Tom Brady or 3/4 as good as Tom Brady, and he can execute in this offense, I mean, he's like a perfect fit for the offense. So he's still going to put up great points for your fantasy team, and the Patriots can be a playoff winning team with Mac Jones on the roster. I mean, Bill Belichick's never drafted a quarterback in the first round. That stat skewed. I mean, they've had Tom Brady for 2 decades, but he liked the guy. He picked him at 15. So it goes to show.
And I think another way of looking at it too is, does Mac Jones have the legs of Justin Fields or Trey Lance, or does he have the arm talent of Zach Wilson or Trevor Lawrence? No, he doesn't. But you look at Phillip Rivers, right? Like Phillip Rivers is someone Phillip Rivers is someone that never put up 30 fantasy points in his entire career, right? But if you got Phillip Rivers as a rookie, you're stoked, especially at 110. If that was Phillip Rivers at 110 on the board, I'm super happy. So even if he never does put up a 30, even if he never does put up
I haven't thought of that. That's a great comparison.
If he never
love Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, if he never puts up 30 points in his career, I mean he doesn't have that ceiling that you're getting out of these other guys. But if he could just put up consistent quarterback 1 numbers, top 12, top 10 numbers, if he could do something like that in his career, you get an absolute steal at 110. That's that's another way of looking at it too. Is he might not have the ceiling, but if you can get the consistency out of him at 110, you can keep him for his entire longevity of his career. I know it's something that I wanted to bring up with Trevor Lawrence earlier is in these SuperFlex leagues, you just don't want someone that's just not going to be a starter next year. You don't want to be in a position you think about it, if you're in a 12-league team, well, each person has to have 2 QBs. That's 24 QBs right there. And if you're probably going to want to end up having someone as a backup. I mean, there's not enough QBs to go around for the entire league. So I think really at 110 getting Mac Jones, if you can get a potential starter year after year, it's not a position no, are you going to have that top 5 upside? No, but you're also not going to have to worry about the quarterback position in the future, if you do end up getting that out of him. So I think honestly in SuperFlex, I'm more looking for someone that is going to be a solid starter as well. That's why I would consider Lance in a 1 QB league over Lawrence. But there is no way I'm not taking Lawrence 101 in a super flex, just for the fact that I feel a lot safer that he's going to be a long-term starter than I do about Trey Lance.
He's like a warm, cozy blanket.
Yeah, and I just wanted to mention, just for whoever's out there, the 110. I was between him and Devonta Smith, and if you didn't need a quarterback, I think you should go Devonta Smith.
I agree completely.
And we'll get into him in the second round.
Yeah, I mean,
it was a tough decision to go between those two.
Yeah, I mean, this is like we said, this is our real draft. This is actually how it panned out. We have team needs involved. So we're not sitting here trying to just we're not here in a mock draft trying to pick just the best players on the board, the most need or the most value on the board necessarily. We're also picking for things that we need on our roster. So that's another thing to kind of contribute into this exercise, I guess, is that, yeah, I know you're kind of kicking yourself about Devonta Smith. I know you're higher now on the idea of the draft pick at 110, but I would definitely pick Devonta Smith over Mac Jones if I'm going purely off player value. So that's another way to look at it.
Definitely.
Well, that's going to be it for us today, guys. Just to give you a little recap, we have Trevor Lawrence at 101, Trey Lance at 102, Justin Fields at 103, Kyle Pitts at 104, Jamar Chase at 105, Zach Wilson at 106, Najee at 107, ETN at 108, Javonte at 109, and Mac Jones at 110. So that's going to be pretty much our recap on all these players. We'll have a video on our second round and a video on our third and fourth together later sometime in the next couple weeks or so. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys listen on SoundCloud. And we're the Fantasy D-Gen, so come check us out. Peace, guys.
Are you dirty Mike in the